Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads.
Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as I do each and every week. This is episode 119. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving holiday. I hope everybody's doing well out there. We're having a great week over here at the Drum Shuffle World Headquarters. We have a great episode for you today. We're going to be joined by the great Jeff Williams, who last joined us way back on episode number 21 in the summer of 2018. And we have another just fantastic conversation with Jeff, and that's coming up right after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks.
The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos Drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the US, Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks.
All right, guys and girls, as I mentioned before our message from Los Cabos there, we're going to be joined again today by the great Jeff Williams. We were last joined by Jeff back on episode 21, and he had just put out a live record called Lifelike with his group. And since that time, he has released another record. And of course, the pandemic hit during all of that. And there was really no gigs to be done. And he has yet another record that's going to be coming out in 2021 that we're really excited about. But above all else, every time I speak with Jeff, I feel like I've spoken to a true drumming Zen master. Jeff just gets it. He is the consummate professional and just puts out incredible music. So I know you're going to get a lot from this. So please help me welcome back to the Drum Shuffle, Jeff Williams. Hey, good afternoon, Jeff. How's it going, man?
Well, hanging in there, Jamie, rough times, but
yeah, man.
I can't complain too much. I haven't come down with the dreaded pandemic, so.
Well, that's good. That's excellent, actually.
Yeah. But my social life, of course, is almost non-existent.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
I've had a couple of gigs before things sort of shut down again.
Yeah.
Nice to know I can still play if I have to.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Now, are you, I know that as we talk today, you're in New York. Are you still splitting time between New York and London, or have you been stateside for this whole thing?
No, not for the whole thing. I've been in New York since, I guess, about the end of June.
Okay.
which is abnormally long for me.
Yeah.
Because normally in September I had to go back to London after spending the summer here.
Sure.
But I don't know. I just thought it'd be fun to stick around for the election. Also because I had some gigs, but they've been canceled in the UK, so I've just gone into lockdown again over there. So
yeah. Well, and you know, obviously, I typically work a little bit ahead, so. Just so everybody is aware, we are recording this the day before the election.
Right.
You know, this yeah. So we'll see, you know, but as you guys are listening to Jeff and I talk, you know the outcome. We don't. So this
which
should
kind
be
of
fun.
puts us on edge a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
It really does. You know, I do my best to avoid the politics on this show, but you know, I think at this point you know, the die is pretty well cast that we're ready for change, and you know, we'll leave it at that.
Of any kind.
Of any kind, really. You know, we just want our gigs back, right? I mean, isn't that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had a gig that was outside here in New York and socially distanced, and everyone wearing masks. And then after we had played, there were a lot of people hanging out, wanting to talk. And I realized, because they were all wearing masks, that, you know, if I ever saw them again, I wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I don't know about you, you know, you're a jazz guy, obviously, so you probably don't play at quite the volume level that I'm used to, but I'm at a point in my life now when somebody's talking to me wearing a mask, I have a hard time. I didn't realize how much I read lips, but I do.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but what happened to me was my wife finally got tired of repeating things. and I was insisting that she was not enunciating. And she said, well, you know, you ought to have your hearing checked. And so I did, and now I wear hearing aids.
Yeah. Wow.
And it definitely saved our marriage.
Well, I am rapidly heading in that direction, unfortunately.
Well, don't wait as long as I did.
Yeah.
I was actually, you know, mixing other people's records and didn't realize it needs more highs.
Oh,
so, you know,
that's too good, Jeff. That's so funny. Yeah, it sounds really boxy. There's no high end. I wonder why.
Exactly right. Can't hear the cymbals. Where are the cymbals?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, you know, it's been a while since we've chatted. You know, the last time we had you on the show was way back in June of 18 on episode 21. And we were, at that point, you were in London when we talked, and we were talking about your live record called Lifelike that was, you know, still in its infancy. But since that time, we haven't had you back. You put out a record in 2019 called Bloom that was pretty stellar as well. How was the reaction to Bloom?
Oh, it was very strong. I was surprised because that sort of came together on a whim, and we hadn't played. I had played with Carmen Staff, the pianist, and just a little bit. I had just recently met her and wanted to do something with her, and decided on Michael Formanek, who I've known since the 70s, and we've played a lot together, excuse me, over the years. And we just went in and recorded. And everything was a first take, maybe one exception to that. So it was kind of magical. And that's why I called it Bloom, because it just bloomed right before our eyes, And got a very nice response and wonderful reviews, and was featured on Fresh Air on NPR.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was reviewed on that. So I was very happy, and as a result, I started to set up some work for us, and we had a tour of the UK scheduled for this past May, but of course, that did not happen. Yeah. And it was rescheduled for this May, but I don't think it's going to happen then either. So I just sort of pulled the plug on that for now, which is disappointing because we're just getting started with that.
So that's got to be a tough situation in that, I jokingly say on the show all the time, everybody's going to have a record in 21 because everybody's hunkered down doing recordings right now, and the live side may not come back. So I'm curious your take on this. You put out a great record like Bloom, you schedule tour dates, you have to reschedule those, and then you start reading the tea leaves and say, well, we may not be able to do the rescheduled dates either. So at what point do you say, okay, I have to put that album to bed and start on the next thing?
Well, I did do that. I mean, I had another release in the pipeline.
Okay.
So I concentrated on that, and that's coming out this month. But in relation to Bloom, well, first of all, the tour that was happening in May was a sufficient amount of time since the release of the album that I was already a little worried about that because, things are coming out every day.
Yeah.
So you might have a strong reaction initially, and then it just gets lost in the shuffle,
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, this is going to work, but putting it off then again for another year, we need another album.
Right.
To rev up the interest again. Which I guess we can make another album, but my way of thinking, what I like to do is develop these ensembles that I put together. So maybe it's fine to record initially, but you want to play a lot of live gigs and develop as a unit before you make the next record, it seems to me. So not being able to do that, it's just, I'm sure we'll play in some capacity at some point, but, it's not like it's completely over. But I think, everything is going forward is going to be different. It's going to be streaming and, stuff on the internet.
Yeah. Well,
and there's already so much of that my feeling is just personally, because I've had basically 50 years of doing this, I'll let somebody else do that right now,
right.
Because there's so few opportunities and there's so much out there, vying for notice that I don't know. I've come to realize really fully how blessed I've been, to be able to play all these years in front of a live audience and tour and travel and so on. And that's in teaching and playing with so many young players, particularly in the UK. I don't know what's going to happen to them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
that really concerns me.
Yeah. It's kind of been a running theme with a lot of my guests to start out in the music business today is, I mean, it's like you're trying to rebuild Rome at this point, the way that...
And, we were saying that even before this happened.
Right.
It was, when I came to New York to start my professional career in '71, there weren't that many really good up-and-coming jazz drummers at that time. So I didn't face the level of competition that I would now, or that a young drummer does now, coming to New York, especially now. But this is a new level of difficulty for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that, I jokingly say, very tongue in cheek, I say all the time, the good news is anybody can make a record. The bad news is anybody can make a record.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
And everything just seems to get lost in the shuffle. There is an ocean of new music every week, every month, every day, really.
Every day, yeah.
And to find the gems in that is very, very difficult. So even if you put out the best record of your career next month, it may not get heard at all. It's very,
I'm
very...
doing that this month, actually.
But you know how...
And believe me, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to catch anybody's attention. And now you add in the fact that you can't go out and promote the record with live shows at all. Man, that ups the degree of difficulty exponentially.
Yes, exactly. I don't know what to say about all that. I mean, some days I'm just sort of drawing a blank here. What do I do next?
Yeah.
So I play the drums and I play the keyboard and write some new music and pretend that things are normal in that respect,
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and I'm curious, your perspective on this as well. How is it possible for us as musicians to really overthink this whole thing? I mean, you made a good point there. I just try to write and record the best music possible. Damn the torpedoes, so to speak. But, I guess, what is the strategy for your new record that's going to come out next month? What are you thinking you're going to do to get it in the hands of the listener?
Well, obviously there's a PR campaign, and I've gotten already some press. And then, of course, there's social media, which I'm pretty poor at. Not really too motivated to engage in, but and my expectations are low, I guess. I'm not. I think the main thing, and this is something that I worked for a while with Paul Bley, a great jazz pianist who is no longer with us, who was quite an interesting person, but his motto was just record as much as you can.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it that far, but trying to get out something new on a yearly basis seems to me a reasonable goal,
Yeah.
To keep the momentum going, regardless of what happens. I know I have a few people that enjoy my work and look forward to the next thing that I might be doing, so at least I can provide them with something.
Sure.
And hopefully, it builds. I've watched my career build as a leader over the last 10 or 15 years, very slowly, but it's happening, And it depends on what you expect to have happen, I guess. I mean, the music I play will never reach a mass market. I know that. So I'm looking for modest returns or breaking even. The main thing I've always been interested in is playing music, the act of making it.
Yeah.
And being involved in it. So as long as I can do that in some way, I'll continue to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there is, just play, right? I think we all get so caught up or lost in the, we've got to get the music into the hands of folks. And you said, my music is never going to reach a mass, market, and you're in the majority. You're in the majority there because
that's true. I got lots of company there.
Yeah. I mean,
but in particular, though, I mean the music that I play being somewhat demanding, on the listener, to ascertain what's going on.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. I just think I get caught up, and I'm not trying to project onto you certainly, but I get caught up in, I want to record as much as possible because that's what you leave behind for future generations.
It's also how you move on.
Right. Exactly.
You document something and you can move forward then.
Exactly. Nobody remembers, they don't talk about, the tour from 1989, I mean, I guess maybe some people do, but people always point back to your records as this was a pinnacle or this was, when Jeff was in this phase or whatever the case may be.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
So,
I have wonderful live recordings that people don't know about.
We all do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Well, the last one, when you were on the show last, we were talking about Lifelike. That was a great record. I mean, in terms of, live records, it was fantastic. It was really good. And I still listen to it to this day. So
that makes me want to ask you if you've heard the new record.
I have not heard the new record yet, and I'm sure it's not because I haven't gotten it. It's probably because I haven't gotten to it. Your publicist is very good about getting links out, and it's probably sitting in my inbox as we speak.
Oh, okay. I think the new record is a continuation. It's also live.
Okay, good.
And after we did Lifelike, we did a lot of touring, and with the configuration of sextet that's on Lifelike, and on certain occasions, not everyone could make the gig. So this particular record is scaled down to a quartet, two saxophones, bass, and drums, and I think you'll get a kick out of it, having heard Lifelike.
Yeah,
the development and the cohesion and the risk taking and the excitement, I think, is several notches up from Lifelike. So I'm excited about it.
Well, that'll be interesting for me to hear because, and I'll refresh your memory. You do a lot of press, so you probably don't remember this conversation, but, back when you were on the show last, we asked for a good piece of advice, and your piece of advice, I'm paraphrasing, was don't think too much when you play. And
don't think at all. You're
right.
You can't think and play.
Right.
It's an altered state, ideally. And I think that's what comes across on this, my latest recording, live at London Jazz Festival, Road Tales. Road Tales is essentially we're expressing our experiences traveling as a band through the music. So that's why I called it that. But what's apparent is how quickly things can change in the music in the moment as a result of not thinking. and maybe it's a hard thing to grasp, but I think it's similar to meditation. It's a state where your internal dialogue is just, if not turned off, not being listened to. That you're so immersed in the music that you're being guided by the music itself as to what to play. And this is especially true once the material is really known and understood, and everyone has a personal stake in it. Everyone then is able to reveal themselves, musically, rather than being worried about something that they're supposed to do or something they're supposed to remember,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took that advice to heart, and what
did you? Good.
I did. And what I found, I've never been one, when I go in to do a session, if I'm recording a song or whatever the case may be, I've never been one to listen to demos or listen to a song ahead of time. I kind of want to be surprised, right? And not have a preconceived notion of what I'm going to do. But I'm also, known when I get into a session, I tend to really like first and second takes because that's, typically the raw emotion of it. But I found that I overthink, what am I doing? Am I playing for the song? Should I take a risk, here? But when you don't think and you just kind of, as you said, just get into the groove of the music, what I found was I play a whole lot better if I'm not trying to anticipate what's coming next, or plot what I'm going to do next. It just, it's free.
Yeah. Well, there's that aspect, and then there's also the aspect of your own, sort of the act of judging yourself while you're doing it, which is maybe one of the worst things you can do. Let's say, trying something and then deciding it doesn't work and then changing and not liking that either. And, because you're not even in a position to know what's good or what's not good in the act of doing it.
Yeah.
It's the moment is gone.
Yeah.
So whatever you did, it's what it is. But especially listening to playback in the studio. Let's say you've done a couple of takes and you want to take a break and listen to what you've done, and then, let's try that one again. And now you have all these things in your mind about what you didn't like about what you did or what you think you should do, right? And generally, the music suffers.
Yeah.
It was better the first time.
Well, and, by you saying that and by me understanding that and agreeing, it tells me that both of us do things in kind of an old school way because, modern popular music anyway, it's, if you play the chorus right one time, they'll just cut that into the rest of the choruses, right?
Yeah, you can loop it. That's right.
So,
well, that's a different kind of music making, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you decide to use a recording studio in that way, or your home computer, or what have you, you can obviously create music that way. I'm more interested in, I guess, the happy accidents that occur.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's a mistake, but it's not a mistake if you're able to make something out of it.
Well, I mean, I've always said it's only a mistake if I didn't land on one, right?
Well, at least you have to know where one is. You don't necessarily have to land on it.
If one is not a definitive location, then, I guess anything goes, right?
Well, yeah, that's I'm not sure I like that idea, but it's always nice when everyone agrees on where we are.
Well, I think it brings up an interesting question, and that is, when you're finding younger players to play with as a leader, are you looking as much at, how they react in the moment as to their ability of actually playing their instrument? I'm assuming so.
Well, I think both are, if not equally important, pretty close to that. But my selection of who I want to play with happens from playing with them, as it did with Carmen Staff. We were put on a gig together. I did not know her, and we just clicked immediately. And then something happens. It's a visceral feeling,
Yeah.
And once I have that, then I want that person in my band. It's really that simple.
Yeah. Well,
and it does have to do with, I think, very much not having an agenda, myself included, but the person I'm playing with, not feeling that playing with them forces me to do a particular thing because they have something they're trying to achieve, maybe something they've practiced or what they think their style is or what have you.
Yeah.
So the more open to the actual moment the musician is, the more likely I'm going to want to play with that person.
Yeah, that's another, great point. I think as players, as drummers, let me put it that way. As drummers, I think we just know when we found the right, cast to play with. I've been on gigs where I didn't know the bass player, and within, a half a song, it's either great or not so much. And you just know, right?
Oh yeah. But even that can change. You can sway people, one of the things I've found in playing with people is if you really play with them and support them, they'll start to relax and other things can happen. They'll listen to you. I tell my students this, as drummers, I probably said this on your last show that I did, but as drummers, there's a tendency for us to put out a lot of information, right? Because we have 4 limbs to do it with.
Yeah.
And all these different things to hit, right? And so, for other people playing with us, they're not always sure what to pay attention to and what to tune out.
Yeah.
And so, if you're able to really play to that person, and I don't mean play back to them what they just played, but support them and indicate that you're hearing what they're playing, that opens up the possibility for that person to relax and open up more to what you're playing,
Yeah, for sure. Well, what strikes me about everything I've heard that you have put out over the years, and I've listened to a lot of it. I have not heard the new record yet, but I will get to that. And I want to pick your brain on that for just a second. But the thing about your playing is it feels completely free without those preconceived notions about what everybody's going to do. So with the new record being, another live record, how much of the day to day or the night to night changes? I mean, is it obviously you can't record every single show.
I did though.
Did you? Okay. Okay.
I mean, I do. I kind of believe in that from the standpoint of, actually several different, you may think it sounds one way and then you listen to the recording and it doesn't sound the way you thought. That is to say, certain things didn't come off, other things did come off that you didn't think came off, and you're not in that environment. Maybe it's a week later or something, you sit down and listen to it. And it's also interesting to listen right after you've played. But these things are informative as long as they don't make you self-conscious and as long as they don't dictate, at least not entirely, changes that you want to make in the music or rearranging things. I mean, you can get ideas, but that could cause you to have an agenda the next time you play. So
yeah,
that's a little bit tricky, but in playing basically the same material, changing things around here and there, every night is different.
Yeah.
And different things happen. And at a certain point with a group that's been playing for a number of years, even though we haven't, the tour was really an opportunity to play with some consistency night to night. But in general, let's say you have a handful of gigs in a year, even that, you're building a rapport that eventually is going to bear a lot of fruit. On the new record, there's we're playing these tunes. We've been playing them. Now we don't have piano, we don't have trumpet, so it's a little more streamlined. And there's one tune where something completely unexpected happens, a complete change in the groove and in the time feel and so on. From a swing feel to a straight eighth feel. But no one planned that. No one said anything to make that come about. Yet we all sort of hit it at the same moment. And those are the kinds of things that excite me.
Sure. So the new record then, is it, if you record a lot of the shows or all of the shows, are you picking songs from different nights, different, shows for the record, or is it all pretty consistently one show?
No, it's just one show.
Okay.
It's, I would record on my Zoom recorder, every show, but that quality is not quite suitable, for a commercial release. I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Depending on where I place the Zoom. But
right.
But no, this was recorded in a nice club called Pizza Express in London, and during the London Jazz Festival. And the engineer who does the sound for that club recorded it for me, and it came out sounding great. So not only does it sound great, but the music's great. So that was the obvious and only real example of the whole tour that I had that I felt I could release.
Okay. And what is
there's a high enough quality, in other words.
Sure, of course. There's nothing more frustrating than musically hitting on all cylinders, but then the quality of the recording isn't good enough, or vice versa. The quality of the recording is great, but the band's not having a good night or whatever. What is the street date for the new record, Road Tales?
It's the 20th of this month, November.
Okay, excellent. Well, you and I have a release on the same day. How about that?
Oh, wow.
So that's
wow,
pretty.
we're really in sync now.
We are, man. So
That's cool.
you will lap me by the end of Friday night. I guarantee it. But that's okay. The world is as it should be, Jeff.
I guess so. Well, some of it is anyway.
Yeah.
But congratulations. That's great.
Yeah. We, a group of guys that I've played with for years and years, we, during the pandemic, not much else going on. So we kind of went into the studio one at a time and put together our version of Statesboro Blues. So we're putting that out on November 20th. So we're looking forward to that. We haven't released anything for many years. So we'll see if anybody remembers us at all. But,
that's great.
Yeah. It's
see, that's an act of positive, sending positive energy into the world. At this crucial moment.
Yeah,
so I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, me too. It was one of those things where, nothing else going on. Why not?
That's a motivator.
Yeah, I mean, but I think people spend way too much time asking why when the real question should be why not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think.
Well, sure. I think about that anytime I'm doing a project. Do we really? Does the world really need more music? But whether it does or not, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's right.
What else are we going to do?
That's exactly right. And
I mean, for me, I think it's a calling. It's not like, as has been said by many musicians when asked by a young hopeful, should I do this? Look, if you can do anything else, do that. But if you really can't do anything else but play music, then that's it.
Yeah. Well, I've
not because you're going to make money, not to be famous, anything, But we realize it's a privilege to be able to enter that zone, a music zone.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have that.
That's true. And, I've jokingly said, I don't know how many times, I would make a really bad cook. Nobody wants to eat my cooking. So, do what you're good at. Right. And
yes.
I just think so many creative types get in their own way, right? They question, is it good enough for me to share with the world? Or I guess people are paralyzed by the thought of rejection maybe, or not being accepted. Not everything you do is going to be perfect or great or, win the internet or whatever the case may be. But if you're good at it, put it out there.
Well, then we get into one's own judgment about whether it's good or not, which is probably, we're our harshest critics, right?
Yes.
So if I'm writing a tune, at some point I may say, "Oh, this isn't. What is this? In relation to great music or whatever my unit of measure is. It's pretty easy for me to say, this is not good enough, right? But the other thing is, especially if I'm trying too hard to come up with something. Let's say to finish a tune, or how should the bridge go, or what, things like that. If I'm not being patient to let it just sort of unfold. But, I don't know if you compose as well, but it's like playing, only slower, right?
Yes.
But because it's slow, you have even more of an opportunity to judge what it is that essentially is coming to you musically and decide whether it's good or bad before you've even gotten anywhere with it. In other words, is this a good idea? Is this anything? Rather than letting it become something.
Yeah. Well,
so suspending judgment all the way around is probably a good idea, and let someone else evaluate it.
Yeah, and that's what music is just your emotion and how you're expressing that. And I think that we oftentimes taste is subjective. And I think we oftentimes, there are certain things that are universally accepted as good in the music world, but you can't win jazz. You can't win rock and roll. Everybody, what you feel like may not be your best or may not be good enough, to say that could be a song that changes everybody's life. It could be the next universally accepted greatest piece of work ever. You know what I mean?
So it's the argument against abortion, essentially.
Yeah.
That's the argument. Well, it's one argument against it. Could be the next president. Could save the world.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I just think I just think people should get out of their own way. And that's a way that I will say that. Put out your art. Let others,
but how do you do that?
Man, if I knew that, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today, Jeff. I'd be on tour someplace on Mars or something. I don't know.
You'd be on Dr. Phil or something.
Yeah, I could be. I just think we set up our own hurdles or our own roadblocks, oftentimes as creatives. And
I think some more than others, because I think some people are not wired in the way that you're saying. I think you and I are pretty similar that way, fundamentally. But so it makes me think about certain band leaders that I've known about over the years, who maybe didn't play that well, or were not great musicians in any way, but could get a lot of gigs, and were not shy about putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
They were not in their own way, at least in that respect.
Yeah.
But they were not maybe self-examining enough to produce a good result either.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's different. Has a different combination of those elements. The main thing is to act.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
Yep.
Do something. Sit down and see what happens. Pay attention. Write it down. And don't judge it. At least not right away.
Yeah.
At least not while it's happening,
Yeah,
because that's really what prevents things from happening. To the point where, people go away from music.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible thing.
I agree with you there wholeheartedly.
There's a lot of suffering, so I can't take this anymore. So, it's an act. Making music is an act. And it doesn't require the same level of thought. Although, I think that's true of anything. Let's say you're writing a book and you get hung up on one sentence. You don't like the way you've put it, and you're trying to figure out another way. You've lost the flow of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So if we can just allow ourselves to enjoy the mystery of making music, then I think we'll be fine.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. Well, we're going to look forward to the new record dropping on November 20th. I'm going to encourage all of my listeners to go pick it up, because I have yet to hear something from you, Jeff, that I go, yeah, I don't get it. I have yet to hear something you've done that I don't just thoroughly enjoy. So we're looking forward to hearing the new record. And I can't thank you enough for your time and coming back on the show. We've got to do it more often. Every 2 years that's too far. We need to make it a point to have you on once a year, because I always feel better about the world of music after I talk to you, and I always feel like I learn so much. So thank you.
Oh, you're very kind. Well, thank you, Jamie. It was a pleasure to talk to you, as always.
Yeah, for sure, man. And, we're going to send some folks your way. One last question before I let you go. I know that you're always teaching. If folks are looking to maybe do a lesson or something like that, where can they find you? What's the easiest way to contact you?
Well, I'm really not in favor of this sort of online lesson business. It doesn't work for me the way I teach, anyway. I don't think. I've tried a little bit of it. But my website, willfulmusic.com, you can contact me there. And I'm not ruling it out entirely, the virtual teaching idea, but in any case, more and more I've come to the realization, not the realization, because I had this before, but in all my years of teaching, it may be that the strongest aspect of what I do is some of the things I've said to you today, turning people onto themselves. What do you want to play? What are you hearing? What do you like? What is it you want to do?
Yeah.
Not necessarily you have to learn all the rudiments right now, and you have to listen to all the jazz greats and this and that and whatever. Because if you're not drawn to learning about all this, and you can't do it all at once anyway, but if you're not motivated to look at the sources that exist on YouTube, on record, etc., then you probably don't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Most of what I learned from watching other drummers and listening to them and listening to records and immersing myself in it for many, many years before I hit the scene and, studied seriously with Alan Dawson when I was 30. I'd already been playing professionally for a number of years. So I think, especially now, it's, what are you expecting me to teach you? I play in an old-fashioned way, compared to, let's say, a lot of the young guys playing now, playing jazz now, who maybe have come out of the church and have completely a totally different approach than I do. A contemporary approach, you might say. Whereas I look at myself as I once looked at Papa Joe, who I was able to spend time with, and he would show me things, sort of not really getting it to the point where I could do it, but he would say, "No, you do it," and I couldn't do it, and he'd say, "Okay, I'll try again tomorrow." but I was very glad that I went to Alan when I did, being mature enough to practice his material 8 hours a day, every day, so that I could get the next installment in the next lesson, because he wouldn't give me the next installment unless I could play perfectly what he'd already given me. And that's the way I would prefer to teach.
Yeah.
You know, but I've rarely, if ever, been able to do that.
Well, I think
I'm not opposed to it. I'm available for whatever knowledge I can convey.
Sure.
Happy to do it.
Well, and I think the best teachers in the world maybe don't show you how to do something, but talk to you about what you've discovered on your own.
Yeah.
I think breaking that part of it down, okay, what you just played right there, that phrase, that passage, why did you do that? Right. And digging into that, I think that's where the real learning happens, in my opinion. That's where the real learning happens for me, is when somebody turns it around and makes me think about what it is I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's also, you did it. It's, it's your body. It's yourself. So it is being turned on to yourself. But, music, different styles and so on, it's a language, so you have to learn the language too. So if you want to be a drummer who works, is able to cover a lot of territory, that's a lot of listening that you have to do, a lot of absorption of all kinds of music.
That's right.
And then you find the common denominator in all of them, and you're able to be adaptable and able to do justice to wherever you find yourself musically.
Yep.
That's more than I can do, by the way. But
me too, brother. Me too.
It's a lofty goal.
It is.
But you think about somebody like Steve Gadd or great studio drummers. That's what they had to do. But going back, to the days of stage shows and vaudeville and what have you, the drummer had to be able to do all kinds of things, and so that kind of experience, we're not getting that these days. So it's a challenge to pick up that information, because as Papa Joe said, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
We might think there is, but
yeah. Well, in the constant bombardment from all sides of the next great thing, right? I mean, you have to be able to, to sort through that. And, we could talk about that for another hour, probably.
Oh, yeah.
But I just want to encourage my listeners, reach out to Jeff. He is truly a master of our instrument, and he's not opposed to doing a Skype lesson or some sort of virtual thing. But seriously, if you're in the New York area, it's worth a drive to sit down and have a lesson with this man. So we're going to send some folks your way, Jeff.
Bring your mask.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, thanks so much, man. I love your attitude about things, and I'm so glad you do this show.
Well, I appreciate you saying so, but we got to have you back soon. All the best to you and Lionel. I know that times are trying right now, but this will end sooner or later, and we'll all be back together playing our gigs and having a good time. Jeff, thank you so much, man.
That's the spirit, Jimmy. You take care.
All right, you too. All right, guys and girls, that is going to wrap up episode 119 of the Drum Shuffle podcast. I can't thank each and every one of you enough for tuning in. We simply cannot do this show without each and every one of you doing so each and every week, and it truly means the world to me that you do. Along those lines, as I do each and every week, I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you use to listen to the show. It helps us more than you'll ever know to continue our growth process. Leave us a star rating, a review, share a link with a friend. We really do appreciate your efforts there. It's hard for me to believe, but we have almost come to the end of 2020. Therefore, I only have one more episode left this year before we take off for the Christmas holidays. I'm going to be joined next week by Jeremy Brisky of Lowboy Custom Beaters. Great company. I've been using their products for quite some time, and Jeremy's just a great dude. And we have a fantastic conversation about not only his company, but also about endorsements and the do's and don'ts of endorsements. And that was actually at Jeremy's recommendation. He said, somebody needs to talk about this. So that's what we do in our interview, and you're going to get that next week as the final episode of 2020. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss that. As always, we answer every single email that we get here at the show. The Drum Shuffle Podcast at gmail.com is where you can reach us. Our web address is thedrumshuffle.com. And of course, you can find more information for me over at jamieeads.com. As always, thank you guys so much. And until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.